And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies through testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead. Okay, Chardell, we don't hear you. You may be on mute where you are.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Here we go. Well, last night I was thinking about a testimony I wanted to give to thank our practitioners and everyone involved with the roundtables, the Bible studies, the services, the music, everything, for the awakening I've been experiencing since attending the Plainfield Church. Well, I had been bothered by a little headache all day, and after listening to the message about not being bland and accepting any error, I realized that I was pain-free. So I am waking up to truth more and more, and I am very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the two readers that we had tonight for the wonderful and inspiring reading from Bible and the Science and Health. I have learned here through the teaching in this church that God does not require from us any work that we are not capable of doing. Whatever is required of us, we are capable of doing that. And the same thing can also be used to every part of our body, because every part of our body is governed by God, and their functions also are governed by God, and nothing bigger than them can be required of them. This evening, as I was taking grocery off my car to my apartment, when I was done, I started feeling some severe pain on one of my arms, and there was no reason for that. It was just grocery. I didn't maybe do something other than that, so I didn't see the reason why I should be having that pain. And that was a few hours before the service. And then I spoke to my arm that I don't require of you anything more than you are capable of doing. And there's no reason for that. And I know it was error trying to inhibit the truth that we are going to be expressing, it's me in particular that I'm going to be expressing here tonight. And after taking a shower, the pain continued, but like we learn here that error does not persist, but truth does. And coming here to this moment, the pain has completely disappeared. And the truth that set all mankind free persisted, and my hands are completely healed, and I'm free of the pain. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie from Texas, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to thank Fairley and Elsie for those beautiful readings, not just inspiring, but beautifully read. I also want to express gratitude for our Unity Watches. Back when we really just first started them, we did a couple of watches to handle the drought in Texas and the Southwest. And right after that, we had a little bit of rain. We hadn't had any rain in maybe 2 years. We're like 36 inches below our average rainfall for the last 2 years. And ever since then, we've had a little bit of rain at regular intervals, not enough really to put us ahead, but just enough to keep us going. But today it has rained all day. It has rained hard all day, and it is so wonderful, and I am so grateful for the work of everybody who does the watches. It's just wonderful. And, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Ever since I arrived in June of 2013, I've tried to find a way to include my kids in this wonderful church. My son has enjoyed coming to Sunday school, but my daughter has not wanted to join in. I spoke to my practitioner about it a lot, and I have done my best to see her in church, but it seemed like she had no interest. I realized I couldn't push it on her, so I just let God know that I knew it was all on Him. And this past week, she told me that she felt she had been changed in a positive way by church. She had a lot of questions about Christian Science I did my best to answer, and she even attended the Bible study. I'm so grateful to God for this change. And then I have a letter from California. I am so grateful for the Plainfield practitioners. Last week I had an urgent problem and called one of the practitioners of the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. It was late in the evening. The practitioner did not answer the phone live, but since I had indicated in my message that they should call me at any time, regardless of the hour, early the next morning, the practitioner called. The call was most welcome, was very healing and direct, and within a few hours the healing was well on the way. I wish to give gratitude for the practitioners of Plainfield, who are never absent from their post, never off guard, never ill-humored, never unready for work, as paraphrased from Mary Baker Eddy's article, Obedience. The practitioner asked me to review a past roundtable recording about Pond and Purpose on YouTube, and that was most healing as well. Also, I am grateful to the roundtables which are putting me into an in-depth acquaintance with key teachings of Mary Baker Eddy, such as the articles on obedience and Pond and Purpose, articles that are almost obscure in the common popular culture of Boston Christian Science churches, but are jewels hidden in plain sight. Thank you.
And thank you to both of you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Tonight I'd like to express gratitude for my life being changed so beautifully and blessed by the loving patience of a practitioner here at Plainfield who has been clearing the way for me to be able to take in my heart all the biblical principles and teachings that are lived here and taught. One in particular message that I have really cherished that has come through and permeates almost everything that's taught here is this idea that each person has their own purpose and place, and no one is more worthy nor more important than another. Through all this teaching, I am finding myself less judgmental, more unselfish. I have lessening of a pride, greater patience, and I feel like I'm leaving behind this sense of competition for limited good. I have spent years struggling with a sense of lack of worth, and this is changing as I am beginning to live these biblical principles and becoming more obedient to God's commands. One of these weeks past, you had a hymn that I really loved, and at the end it said, "As stars in their courses never contend, as blossoms their hues in harmony blend, as bird voices mingle in joyful refrain, so God's loving children in concord remain." Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Elsie and Sally, for wonderful readings and also the hymns that you chose. Thank you very much. Tonight I'd like to give gratitude for something that happened a few weeks ago that proved what Mrs. Eddy said in No and Yes, page 12, that the essence of this science is right thinking and right acting, leading us to see spirituality and to be spiritual, to understand and to demonstrate God. I was taking a trip and I had two suitcases with me, Before the trip, I knew that God governs every detail of it. Now, at the train station, when the train pulled up, I saw that the steps were rather steep, and so I was wondering how I was going to get my cases back up the steps. Without asking, the lady behind me helped me, put the suitcases up there, and there was no problem at all. Now, once on the train, I saw that the nearest empty seat was beside this man who looked rather unfriendly, and he looked me up and down and then turned his face to his crossword puzzle that he was doing. He looked so serious, so I quietly sat down without a word. I wanted to greet him, but I kept quiet at that time. After some time, a little bit of negative thinking started to come in, but I have committed through my knowledge in Christian Science now that every day I will commit to separating every error from the thought of man. So I kept replacing these thoughts with what I know now about man, the truth about man. Now, 2 stops before my destination, the question came again, how are you going to get these bags down these steep steps? Now, suddenly, this man who had ignored me for about 30 minutes started talking to me. He said, where have I traveled from and where I was going? And he was smiling, and somehow he just said, don't worry, I'll help you with your suitcase. We're not quite there yet, but I will help you. And we had a very nice, brief conversation. And when we got down, he gave me the exact directions as to where to go. But what was most remarkable was that I was looking at a different man. His face was changed. He was beaming with a smile as he said goodbye. Now I realize now, and at that time I did too, because of what I know through the teachings of this church, that the change that took place was in my thinking. It was my thinking which had revealed to me the beloved child of God. And it reminded me of something I read some time ago that said, you are not a Christian until God is in every face. Principle revealed through every idea. I am so grateful for what Christian Science teaches, for how practical it is, and for Mrs. Eddy for working so tirelessly to give the saving grace to the whole of mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Betty from California, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very grateful this evening that I've become aware that it would be possible to learn to separate the error from the person, love the person, and blast the error. Before this, I just couldn't see how I could even begin to do this, particularly with a family member. The phrase seeing them right had the same feeling of impossibility for me. It was like I was the only person who didn't get this. Once, a while back, I explained it to a practitioner about this family member, that if I saw them right, then I was wrong, which really was off base. Anyway, in working on a more distant situation involving someone who wasn't very close, I was able to actually do this, separate God's child from an error, love God's child, handle the error. Another time, with also another distant type situation, it wasn't as easy, and that's when it hit me. It can't be done if I'm holding on to some sort of resentment or irritation about somebody, which I had been on this case. About this time, when speaking with a Plainfield practitioner, I was given an article from Bicknell Young's 1937 College, page 21, on love. It's about 2 pages. I think it's on the website on the carousel. It starts, first, last, and always, the great need is love, and that's with a capital L. It goes on to say, I'm going to quote this part, Any human being might be justified in not liking another person, but he should still love him. There would be something the matter with you if you liked them all. You do not like the unpleasant and objectionable things and call that love. You can love the real man, but if a human being seems to express nothing but evil, you cannot like him, and you cannot say that he is the Son of God. The real man is the Son of God, and that is all that is true about him, and anything else is an illusion and a misrepresentation, unquote. This helped me so much. I didn't have to like the bad stuff about a human. And not only that, I didn't have to feel guilty about not liking the bad stuff. That was huge for me. So I could drop those bad feelings like resentment also. This helped me to see, and it was a present possibility of learning to see that family member right, and so on, and keep working on it. I'm very grateful for this and for the Plainfield Church where I can learn these lessons. And thank you for those beautiful readings.
Thank you. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead.
Yes, I will just echo. Thank you, Fairley and Elsie, so much for the readings tonight. They were messages I really needed to hear about being patient and persistent, and to wait patiently on God and not be a sluggard in the race. Sometimes it's easy, speaking for myself, to get discouraged when I don't see results right away. But just today, in a conversation with a practitioner here, she reminded me that truth is working, and to trust that it's working, even if error would say it's not. And if we are persistent and consistent and patient each day and truly working, that's the law of God in action. So I am just grateful today, just to God for the progress that I am making. Thank you.
Thank you. Day from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the article, Forgetting Those Things Which Are Behind, by Catherine Young, found on the Plainfield website. Being regretful and feeling guilty or angry about past events is something that has caused me to feel burdened at various points throughout the years. And it's uplifting to know that this isn't necessary and it's not right, no matter what the circumstance or who seems to be affected by it. Along with forgetting things that have weighed on me for years, I realize that it's just as important to detach my thoughts from even what seems to be the most recent mistake. This leaves burdensome feelings no chance to linger. Working with God in all that I undertake and working and thinking in the present gives the opportunity to right any wrongs as God sees fit. So there is really nothing left to worry, feel guilty, or angry, or be sorrowful about. This is something for me to work with every day, and I am very grateful that God has provided this article through Plainfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne from Vermont, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm so grateful to be here tonight, and there's no place I'd rather be than at this holy service, and I truly love all the participants and the testimonies. I wanted to share something that happened on Sunday afternoon as we were leaving our home to go to an afternoon play with a friend of mine visiting from out of state. It had been snowing, and we came down our driveway, and there was a huge bank of snow, and a car came up our street, just barreling along, and in a split second, it looked like we were going to just plow into the car. And it all happened so fast, but the car was going fast enough that we just glided behind it and down the road. And it truly was a magnificent demonstration of protection from God, and just knowing that accidents are unknown to God and that all of God's ideas are always in perfect harmony. This certainly was a beautiful demonstration of that. I immediately thanked God because our car is new, and it just was natural for it to be this way, because we know in Christian Science, and I learned after coming to Plainfield, that God has only good in store for his children. If we are obedient to God, that is what God has, only good in store for him. And I never really understood that or took that to heart before coming to this church. But instead of living in fear of when the next foot might drop or shoe might drop, I guess is the expression, we can be confident to know that God is a loving God, and God will protect us, as the Bible promises, as long as we are obeying him and doing the best we know how. I'm so grateful for this protection, and we had a wonderful evening. And I thank you for this wonderful service tonight.
Thank you.
A short testimony, because maybe somebody wait. I find out communicate with God spiritually. It's just wonderful way, because I find out I forgot things which I supposed to not remember, and I appreciate Christian Science, which I learned here, because let's say 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know that much like I know now. And thanks, Mrs. What I call it, Becker, for bring this science, and people used to on internet and listen on telephone, whenever, and have a chance strongly believe God. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I could begin to count the ways that Christian Science has changed my life and blessed me in so many ways. One of those blessings was straightening out my priorities in life. I remember when I first came to Plainfield a few years ago, I desperately wanted to be successful, and I had a high-pressure job in New York, and I was always struggling to find time to work for church and spend time here, and I felt driven, and it was all the world's definition of success: bigger job, bigger this, bigger that, lots and lots of material things, and I was miserable most of the time. And finally, one day I was asking a practitioner in this church for help, and the practitioner asked, "Well, where is God in all of this?" Who are you blessing? And it really stopped me in my tracks and caused me to really question what I was doing with my life. And it was then that I began a very important change. And it was then that things that had been important to me, that I thought were important, suddenly became a lot less important. And the things of God began to become more important. And I felt like this huge weight was being lifted off my shoulders. And I felt like I could all of a sudden see things more clearly. And I felt happy. I mean, I thought I was happy, but I was really not happy until that point. And shortly after that, I was lifted out of that job and found positions that were really much more satisfying and gave me a lot more time to work for church. And the rest is history. My family and I have never lacked anything. We've always had plenty. And that's because God has taken good care of us. And for no other reason than that. So I'm so grateful for Christian Science as it is practiced and taught in this church. I'm so grateful for that practitioner, for the wisdom that practitioner had in knowing what it was that I needed to know. And it's wonderful to be here tonight.
Thank you.
One day I asked my mom, why is the devil a devil who is mean? And she said that she was jealous, the devil was jealous about something from the God. So then the other day I kept on thinking about why should the devil be mean, and maybe on the other hand he has a little heart to come back nice again. So what I'm trying to say is that I think love is important, because if there were no love, I don't think we would be here right now. Everybody would be home watching TV, playing their video games. So love is important.
And you are absolutely right, and thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
I want to express my gratitude tonight for the help of my practitioner there at Plainfield. I've been going through a time when my husband had to be hospitalized because he broke his hip ice skating. And he's been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I found it very, very challenging to drive to the hospital because it's quite a ways from my home, and I'm not fond of driving. So the other day I set out, 2 days or so ago I set out, and I had learned to trust God, and I knew that God gave me the strength and the direction, and I knew that God does not know accidents. And I drove over there more smoothly and more confidently than I had in several days. And everything seemed to just be totally harmonious as I pulled up to the hospital. But when I went into the hospital, up to the floor where my husband was, I was supposed to have a meeting because he was in a rehabilitation part of the hospital, and I was supposed to have a family meeting so I could explain what our house was like when he came home and had to be walking in this house with a walker and so on and so forth. And when I got there, everything just seemed out of kilter somehow. And it turned out that they had made my appointment for the following week after my husband would have already been home. So there was nobody set up for this meeting that I was supposed to have. And I became a little perturbed. And in sharing this with my practitioner later this week, I learned something about Christian Science that I really had only partially known before. It became clear to me she was talking about the fact, she was telling me that, of course, these people, and particularly in a hospital, they're not in the same kind of mental framework that you're in. And so I caught on to the fact, more than I ever have before, that you do have to put on your armor and carry the sword of truth and realize the danger that is out there in thought, in mortal mind, more than I have before. It just clicked. So when I went back the next day, today, to pick my husband up and bring him home, I entered with a clear understanding of God and the strength that I have as God's idea, and the calm and the patience, and everything went beautifully. And I had the strength to do all the things that I had to do and push and carry all the equipment, and it was just a very harmonious experience and totally different from before. But in this whole process, I've clearly learned, as I've heard others tonight testifying, how they've caught on to something. I just want to express such tremendous gratitude for all the teaching that has helped me take hold and understand and walk further in Christian Science to make not only my own life, but other people's lives around me, to recognize everybody for who they really are. Thank you so much for reaching out to the world, that I could stumble on you by searching and find the Plainfield Church.
Thank you. Shahidat from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight my testimony is about supply. When I used to attend a local CS church, whenever the offering bucket came my way, I'd empty out my coin purse and that was it. I felt content giving to God only what was left over. Essentially, I kept God at an arm's length and surprisingly never felt really connected. Later, when I came to Plainfield and the services were not yet offered live, I still regularly attended my local CS church as well and listened to the Plainfield service later on in the week. Since I was only a part-time Plainfielder, I felt justified sending in only a minimal offering on an irregular basis because I thought that was all I could afford. After all, I rationalized, I was only just recently employed after racking up almost $100,000 in graduate student loans. Added to that was a sizable amount of credit card debt due to a prolonged unemployment. I was convinced that I'd be in debt for the rest of my working life. Giving financially to church seemed like a sacrifice I just couldn't afford to make. In working for a practitioner on a physical problem, he talked to me about my commitment and the importance of being all in. Deep down, I clearly did not trust God's ability to provide for me after what seemed like an extended period of not having enough. I took a leap of faith after talking to him and committed to sending in a minimal amount each pay period. I figured that once I moved beyond entry-level salary, I would be able to contribute more. Over time, Plainfield became my only church, and every time I heard stories from the Bible, such as the widow's mite, and the giving of first fruits to God, I felt that if I truly believed that my substance came from God, then I would kick this lingering fear of lack in the teeth and stop holding back. I committed then and there to begin tithing a full 10%. I've been doing so ever since, while at the same time those student loans and credit cards were completely paid off, and I've consistently had my financial needs met. I'm very grateful tonight for the true provision that I've been learning in this church. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tonight we have a letter from our newest member from Pennsylvania. Thank you for accepting my request for membership in the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. To be part of a community of people devoted to God who are always working to bless mankind is an honor. The past 8 months have transformed my life, and I hope to be a useful addition to your Gideon band of Christ's servants. With great love. We also had, I believe it was the first call from Hawaii this week, someone calling from Hawaii on the church phone and saying how she had found us because she was looking for a certain Christian Science hymn, which she Googled, and up came YouTube, one of 600 that Jeremy has put out there, with one of our hymns singing, and she said how much she loved it and was singing along, and then she found our website, and she was so excited to find the website and to feel such love and vitality and freshness coming from it. So that was great news. And I'll read just a few things from our church website bulletin board as well. A couple of things, thanking Benjamin for his article about youth. I'll just read one of them from Pennsylvania. I would like to thank Benjamin for his article on our youth. The power of one is an awesome reminder of how we need to be thinking about our children all over the world. Also, a thank you to Elizabeth for the wonderful questions last Saturday on Christ Jesus at the Bible study. And thank you to Jeremy for his devotion to detail, which has enabled me to participate on the forum. And then Georgia, congratulations to Florence and Fairley on their new positions as first and second readers for the Sunday service. So beautifully done. And this is Illinois. How grateful I am for this morning's beautiful, inspiring, and rousing Bible study. Tonight I'd just like to say, when I first came to this church and began working with a practitioner here, although I had many other practitioners in the past, this one was definitely different because of her enthusiasm, her love for God, for Christian Science. There was a great sense of love, as well as also an ability to rebuke error. And in working with her, I was always given something to do. It was never just her working and I'm just sort of sitting somewhere hoping for the best. I was always giving passages to work with, things to memorize, things from the Bible and Science and Health. I remember one of the first things I was given was from Psalms in the Bible, 138, verse 8. The Lord will perfect that which concerneth me. And I was told, no matter what the problem was, even if I didn't know about the problem, God would be perfecting it if I would be knowing that truth. And even if I hadn't helped her, asked for her help specifically on a certain problem, once I was getting Christian Science help, everything in my life was changing and getting better. And that was truly the case. And I still work with that verse. Anytime I might be concerned to be worried about anything, God will perfect that which concerneth me. To know that truth, it's a tremendous power. It has certainly helped make the Bible alive to me. And of course, also many passages in Science and Health. I'd like to read you something I found extremely interesting. It's a report from 2002, the State of the Church. Someone conducted a survey of self-pronounced Christians. And this is what they found out about their knowledge of the Bible. And now remember, these are Christians. 48% could not name the 4 Gospels. 52% cannot identify more than 2 or 3 of Jesus' disciples. 60% of American Christians can't even name 5 of the 10 Commandments. 61% of American Christians thinks the Sermon on the Mount was preached by Billy Graham. 71% of American Christians thinks the quote, God helps those who help themselves, is a Bible verse. Now that is appalling, but I bring it out because I'm so grateful that we are having the Bible studies. I'm so grateful that here we recognize the importance of the Bible, the great importance Mrs. Eddy gave to it. She based her textbook, Science and Health, on the Bible. Horace Greeley, who was he founded and was the editor of the New York Herald Tribune in the 1800s, which was a very respected newspaper. He says, and I quote, "It is impossible to enslave mentally or socially a Bible-reading people. The principles of the Bible are the groundwork of human freedom." Thank God we respect, love, and read the Bible, and may we teach it to our children, keep it in our hearts, and know that this is truly the only path to keep and maintain the God-given freedom that we have been so blessed to have received. I'm so grateful to be here tonight to hear those wonderful, inspired readings and such good testimonies as well.
Thank you.